everyone, and welcome to this video. Now, you've probably noticed that I'm in a different location for this video. It's because today I'm joined by a very special guest, the wonderful vinyl collector James.
Hello.
So yeah, today we're just going to be doing like a quick video. So at first, I sort of was struggling to come up with a idea for a video what me and James could do, but then we thought probably our favourite period of music is probably from about say 1977 through to about 1987, that sort of period that we feel was one of the most interesting most exciting times for music. So we thought that we would today showcase 10 artists each who establish themselves again establish themselves at this period of time, the criteria was that they had to basically release their debut record at some point within this time period. So although there was great music this time that coming from the likes of Fleetwood Mac and ELO, a lot of classic rock bands, those ones we won't be talking about today because they already had a established career before this time period.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add to that is that some of these albums may not fall into that decade, but the band had to have had established itself during that period, that decade. So if something isn't quite in, if it falls after 87 or 86, and it's but it has to be after their debut album would have had to have been after 1976.
1976. Yeah. Okay, so we'll just get started with the video. James is going to go first with his first choice.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks. It's great having you here. So it's pretty cool to have a fellow VC member in the house and playing records and everything. So picking 10 artists from this particular decade, from 76 to 86, is a big challenge because I could have easily picked 20 or more that I would consider very influential on my musical taste to this day, and some bands that Ross has picked that I'm still discovering, so it's pretty cool. And these are in no particular order, but the first band I picked probably is one of my very early music loves. When I was a teenager, probably about 82, 83, I discovered Eurythmics. And Eurythmics, was one of the first concerts I'd ever been to as well. I went with my dad on this Sweet Dreams tour. I think it was Sweet Dreams tour, and perhaps the next album, the Touch tour. Memory's a little bit cloudy from when I was 14, but I remember Howard Jones opening, and that's when I fell in love with Howard Jones, and of course then Eurythmics were just mind-blowing. So Sweet Dreams Are Made of This was the second album actually from Eurythmics. In the Garden was their debut, but it didn't really do anything, and then they came and completely changed their sound to a very 80s synth pop, and by far I would say easily my favorite synth pop albums here, these two albums, and I'm particularly fond of this one. This is my favorite Eurythmics album, Touch, and we had just played this, so Ross could maybe at least hear it once before the video, and I think he semi-enjoyed it, considering he doesn't know too many songs. But anyway, Eurythmics are my first choice from that decade, and again, these aren't in order, but certainly one of the greater influences on my music to this day.
Yeah, now for my first choice, just wanted to get this one out of the way because me and James have already done a video on this band uploaded a few days ago on Vinyl Collector James's channel. It is XTC, so I've got this one to show him a copy of Drums and Wires, which I got a few days back. I just think that they are a really quite wacky, quite creative band. They're always changing, always evolving their sound. So this is their third record, Drums and Wires, the one which really established them as a really great band. This one a little bit later, 1982, this one came out. English Settlement, James's lovely copy, also signed as well. So if you want to see more XTC stuff, more of James's brilliant collection, do check out the video we made a few days ago.
Yep, just a few days ago we did that. So if you haven't had a chance to look at it, and especially if you like XTC, you'll probably enjoy that. Okay, next up for me is well, I mean, it's hard to say favorites of my 10, but this one would probably be a hard argument to say that it's not my favorite band from this era. It absolutely had to be on my list, and that is The Cure. And I pulled out 2 records from The Cure. I think everything is 2 records, but of course I had to pull out Disintegration. This is an original vinyl pressing of Disintegration, and probably their most loved album. and maybe, I don't remember, I did a Cure ranking. I think I had done a Cure ranking on their albums maybe 2 years ago on my channel, and I believed I picked this one as my second favorite Cure album, The Head on the Door.
It's probably my favourite.
Yeah, I think this was the first Cure album you got.
Yes, I got it from my uncle, yeah.
And both absolute masterpieces, classic. Sadly, I've never seen the Cure in concert. Hope to fix that before they're all said and done. But their entire discography, especially from this era, from the late 70s through about the mid 80s, is absolutely flawless as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, it's just fantastic. I mean, if you've never heard these albums, these would be fantastic starting points. So what can you say about the Cure? I mean, they're unique, one of a kind, and Robert Smith is one of the more influential musicians, I think, on the planet. So there you have it, the Cure.
Okay, now for my next choice, I've gone for probably the band what probably started like the career of like one of like Britain's like great songwriters. It is the Jam here. Yeah, like in this like time period, like he was in like 2 bands like in like this decade. Like first one like was like the Jam, who were incredibly popular like in like the UK. Like they were very much a very like important band like for like a lot of like young kids like at like the time. This is like a wonderful like compilation triple vinyl set what has a lot of like their like big hits on it, like as well as choice album tracks. Yeah, the Jam like absolutely fantastic. Although singer like Paul Weller like broke them up probably like at like the height of like their like success in like 1982. He went on to form another like for me like equally brilliant band, the Style Council. Although like I know like a lot of people like not massive fans like of like the Style Council. Like they said like kind of like he changed his sound like completely, but then again he got a lot of like new fans like with like this new band here. This is a American copy of the Internationalists album here. So yeah, Paul Weller, absolutely brilliant like consistency like in like this decade, like watch out in this decade like what we're talking about today.
Okay, next up for me is another band that I absolutely still love to this day, and I'm still buying their music, and they're still out doing their thing, touring, making new albums. They just had a new album last year called Spirit, but absolutely Depeche Mode has to be on my list. This is their debut album, Speak and Spell. Unfortunately, I don't have an original pressing of this album, but if I ever found one, I certainly would pick it up. And I think I have actually seen this a few times, but usually they're pretty rotten condition and they want an enormous amount of money for them, so I tend to just and their remastered series has been phenomenal. This is an original pressing of their second album. I think this is second album or third album, I forget. Construction Time Again. Actually, this is their third album. A Broken Frame was their second album. So paid a whopping $3 for that one. So I don't know why some are so less expensive than others. But anyways, Depeche Mode, what a wonderful career they have had. And I really just can't imagine not talking about them in this particular period of time. So been a fan since probably about this time is when I actually discovered Depeche Mode. They did not quite make the American scene on their debut album very much, at least in my world. And it took about 3 albums for them to kind of make a splash here and there.
Yeah, but we were watching some of like their like music videos like the other day.
Yes.
Like, they're really fun, like really good songs. I thought so. Yeah, Depeche Mode, fantastic stuff there. My next choice though is probably the only American act which I'm choosing. Like although like actually like the lead singer like David Byrne like was born like in Scotland. It is Talking Heads here. So I've picked this record here, Remaining Light. It kind of just because it's such like a like sort of like revolutionary like sort of album here. Like it's like got a very unique sound, very like sort of like early sort of use of like sort of sampling and like sort of like repetitive like sort of like dance beats. It's just very like interesting album here. Again, like they did sort of go through like a lot of like different changes. Like they sort of started off like as a sort of geeky sort of punk band, that kind of thing, but like then like evolved like into stuff like this, and like later I think 1984 this was the Stop Making Sense concert, which again like we watched the other night, and it's just absolutely like fantastic stuff here, like really brilliant live band. Like again, like after this, like this was like their like last ever tour here, so like they definitely went out like on like a high,
and widely regarded as perhaps the greatest concert film of all time,
definitely,
which would be hard to argue, I think. Next up for me, again, kind of an obvious choice. If you've followed my channel, you know I'm a big fan of this band, especially in the early days. And I don't know why I picked this one, but I really would have preferred to have the British copy with the right cover. I always considered this the wrong cover of U2's Boy. But U2, I've loved U2 since the next album I'm going to show you. I did not know them prior to their third album. But this is their debut album, Boy. This came out in 1980, I believe. Yeah, 1980. And it's absolutely phenomenal. I love the energy of the early U2 stuff. But this is where I came into the picture, like probably most people in America. Their first single that made a splash here was probably New Year's Day. And yeah, from there it was just non-stop. I mean, this album was everything to me when I was growing up. I loved it. It was like a spiritual awakening for me when I heard this. And unfortunately, their career has suffered a bit in later years, but during this period of time, I can't think of anybody who, you know, this was, you know, I thought that U2 was going to be the next Who. You know, they were going to be, and perhaps in some ways they were.
They did become
and have become that. But maybe haven't done themselves too many favors with releasing some subpar albums of you know, in the 2000s that they just haven't, the quality has suffered a bit. But going back to the early days, man, U2 were everything to me, so no doubt in my mind they had to make the list.
Yeah, definitely one of like the best like rock bands of course by the time.
Absolutely.
I'd say that for like the first probably like 4 to 5 albums.
Yes,
really
definitely.
untouchable. So next one for me, again maybe something like you just maybe get like overlooked a bit, kind of just because he's had such a sort of like a very like long, like very varied like career, like after this quite sort of like narrow time period, like what we're looking at. But like in 1977, Elvis Costello released his debut album, My Aim Is True, which just like another artist, like again like lots of twists and turns like throughout like his career, but I personally really love like his like early stuff. His first say about like 4 to 5 records, they're all like absolute masterpieces, like as far like as I'm concerned. So like My Aim Is True here, brilliant album. And then I'm going to show off James's Mobile Fidelity copy of Armed Forces here. Brilliant record. Like a bet like this sounds like absolutely fantastic. Like I quite fancy playing this a bit later, like if like you don't mind.
Sure.
So yeah, like Elvis Costello, really fantastic stuff there.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, just to add anything to Elvis Costello, you're definitely the bigger fan than me, even though these are my records. But this one belonged on your list much more than me. I would consider myself a mild fan of Elvis Costello.
Yeah.
I in some ways always think, maybe the hits would do me just fine, but certainly.
But so that the first records are like are fantastic.
Ones to get, for sure.
Ones to get.
So next up for me is another no-brainer. Now, I have not talked about this band too much, if at all, really, on my channel, so that kind of triggered in my mind that I need to do a collections video on New Order. And I pulled this one because this is really the go-to starting point, I would think, for anybody who's new to New Order, and that is Substance. What a brilliant compilation, maybe the greatest compilation of all time of hits. New Order was a carryover from Joy Division, and I think most people know the story there, and you may hear them on someone's list here in a bit, but it's so good. I mean, and this may be my personal favorite album of New Order, Power, Corruption, and Lies. Don't quite know the year this came out, early 80s, 82 perhaps, something like that, and this was their second album? Second or third album, I'm not too sure, but again, I wish I had an original of this, but frankly, the ones I see are not in great. We saw one yesterday.
Yeah, we did
in
actually.
fact.
I guess
We saw an original pressing of this yesterday.
All written all over the cover.
Somebody had written all over it, and even then it was still $40. I think they were asking for it. So, again, they've had a very nice reissue campaign, so these are readily available, and I would encourage anybody who likes early 80s kind of post-punk music to check out New Order if you haven't.
Very revolutionary as well, like sort of like kind of inventive, like what he knows like is like electronic sort of dance music and that, like because before that sort of like electronic music was kind of a bit sort of avant-garde, a bit sort of ambient, whereas they sort of took it like in like a very different direction. But as I say, like before like New Order, there was Joy Division, of course, formed in I'm not sure like what year like they were formed, but certainly like this is like the debut record, Unknown Pleasures, what came out in 1979. So they definitely like fit the bill for this video. This is James's very lovely original UK pressing like on Factory Records. So I've got to be very, very careful about this copy here.
One of my pride and joys.
Yeah, so I'll give you that one back now.
Okay.
And then James also has some really valuable cassettes here, like these sort of original Factory ones. I've just pulled out his copy of Closer here, like although like you probably like can't quite see it. So yeah, joint venture, like really fantastic. Again, maybe something what like I need to sort of like delve into like a little bit like more, because I've only got like the one album like off there, so like Unknown Pleasures, although like of course like a reissue like off it. But certainly like very like interesting band, like Ian Curtis, like just like what a guy, like as far as like sort of like songwriters, singers, just very unique, very like influential group there.
It's amazing, you know, all these years later, how many people are still so infatuated by Ian Curtis, you know, and he's left his mark.
I don't think anyone fully knew like at the time that they would be remembered so.
Well, maybe Manchester
so much,
perhaps, but that's about it.
Yeah,
just a few folks who knew him from the beginning. Well, the list just gets better and better as far as I'm concerned. I mean, those are hard to top, but you know, anybody who's ever seen anything on my channel or watched this channel knows of my love for this band, and that is the mighty Dead Can Dance. And I pulled out two of my personal favorite albums from Dead Can Dance. This is The Serpent's Egg. I think this was their third or fourth album, and the follow-up to that was Ion. Absolute masterpieces. Now, I would say for Ross's fans, the ones that follow him, this would be kind of a tough listen for a lot of people, because they're definitely not mainstream, and they're definitely not something that you would hear on the radio. It's not going to be like music for the masses kind of thing, where it's, you know, they have something for everyone. They have a very unique gothic kind of throwback Renaissance kind of style. And I'm just so blessed really to have original pressings. I've got a whole video on Dead Can, I think there's 3 videos on Dead Can Dance where I did solo stuff, a whole collections video on them, and then I may have followed it up with something else as well. But maybe no more important band to me, because it's such a personal thing. You know, when you listen to this, you either get it kind of or you don't, and it's again not for everyone. But yeah, if you're interested in something different, unique, check it out. I'm a huge fan, so had to be on my list.
Because now my next choice, again, a bit like Dead Can Dance, sort of slightly darker band, but like a bit more sort of like melodic and like actual sort of more sort of traditional sort of like songs as like guitar based sort of like band and that. It's Echo and the Bunnymen here, and I've pulled out James's lovely Mo-Fi copy of their second album, Heaven Up here, which we just played. Really, really like enjoy this album. Yeah, fantastic stuff there. But probably like the one which like them, I'd say most well known for, like, would you say, is this album here, Ocean Rain. Of brilliant record, like the Killing Moon's on here, Seven Seas, Crystal Days. Yeah, just a really, really great, very beautiful album. Like just like nice sort of like combination like of like strings, like just like really, really like nicely produced. Produced like again like Ian McCulloch's vocal, like very unique like sort of vocalist as well. Like gives them a very sort of distinctive sound. Like as soon as like he starts singing, you just know it's like Echo and the Bunnymen.
Definitely, and really up to this point, anything on his list could easily be on my list. So it's kind of fun to be friends with someone who we have such similar taste in music, and I'm sure that's probably one of the big reasons you're here. Alright, next up for me is a band that I kind of debated about whether or not it was going to make my final 10 or not, because I was really on the fence with this. Not because I don't love them, because it's tough to cull it down to just 10, and some of his, you know, could easily make my list, as I said. But ultimately I'm pleased that they did, because I'm a really big fan, especially the early days of R.E.M. This is their very first EP. Does this have a title to it? I forget. Oh yeah, Chronic Town. You know, their first few albums, I just pulled out 2, of course, their EP and their debut album, but fantastic. I don't know, are you as familiar with R.E.M?
Not really, no. I probably only know like a few like the hits, really.
Yeah, man, if you were in college, you know, uni in his world, during this period of time, they were the band. Everybody was listening to R.E.M. and really quite infatuated and taken. And, I mean, they were huge in America, especially, I think, during that period of time. So, thinking about bands that influenced my musical taste throughout my life, and bands that were very, you know, formative as far as not only for my taste, but for music in general. it's hard not to count R.E.M. in that period of time and that these 10 years we're talking about. So I'm pleased that it made my list.
Right, and my next choice is probably someone who would maybe get like overlooked slightly because he doesn't sort of really fit into like a lot of like this sort of like new wave sort of like simple stuff, but he certainly like he was established like in like this sort of period like of time that we're talking about. It's wonderful Tom Petty. So this is his debut record from 1976. So literally just makes like this era like what like we're talking about. But yeah, he just has such like a timeless quality to him. Like sort of like the songwriting's just like that's so brilliant. Like Heartbreakers are really great like backing band, just really sort of like upbeat. Like you really feel great like when like you hear like a Tom Petty like and the Heartbreakers song. I've got like another record of theirs to show you, which is Damn the Torpedoes. Probably that they're probably the best one like from like this period like what like we're talking about. Like although like Tom Petty like would go on to make some really fantastic albums like Film Fever and like Wildflowers, but this period like off like his career like does have like a special place like for me like as well. So yeah, like really like enjoy like Tom Petty.
Yeah, I'm gonna add, and I'm not sure if I've ever confessed this to you or not, but when during this period of time, I was not a Tom Petty fan.
No,
in fact, I didn't even like him. Really. And you know, don't thumbs down the video. It's Ross's channel, but I'm just being honest with you guys. I was not a fan.
So when did you come much later? Was it?
Probably around the time of Full Moon Fever.
Yeah, the Wilburys.
Yeah, is when I really started getting into Tom Petty. And hey, I was wrong. You know, I mean, I guess during that period of time, it was just something I wasn't interested in.
Yeah, it was a bit. It was very sort of influential, like off like sort of like a lot of like 60s and sort of like early 70s sort of music, and that's why it's sort of different and sort of stands out like on like this list.
It took me a little while to warm up to his vocals and his writing style, but worthy of the list for sure. And next one too is a little off center, I suppose, for the rest of my list. It doesn't really fit, I think, but everybody knows that I'm a huge fan. I've made some special box sets if you want to go back a couple years when Prince passed away, and I had done a couple special box sets of my collection for Prince. You know, how can you not include Prince? You know, you could say the same thing about Michael Jackson, I suppose, but I'm just not the fan. I got to be true to myself. You know,
well, Michael Jackson technically, like a big
that's true.
Years before,
he wouldn't really even qualify, I suppose, with Jackson 5 and stuff, because we're sticking to the rules here. But maybe the greatest album of the 80s, really, I suppose, is the soundtrack to Purple Rain, one of the best-selling albums, certainly one of the best-selling soundtracks of all time. And I don't know how many singles were on here, a lot. And it just was on the chart for a full solid year, and changed his life and career, and I just never looked back. I stuck with him even through all the dark period, you know, when he wasn't so great in the mid to late 90s. But that period of time, from the late 70s through the mid 80s, Prince was unstoppable and untouchable. And not for everyone, but certainly something I really felt worthy and needed to be on my list.
Yes. Now I'm going to like shift gears slightly for like my next sort of wonderful band like from Scotland, like although Scotland like maybe like isn't like usually like famed for like its sort of musical like exports, like although like a few like did like crop up like around this time, like Annie Lennox, like as like we've already seen, Simple Minds, Big Country. For me, one of like the most like underrated like groups like from Scotland is Aztec Camera here. So this is like their debut album called Highland Hard Rain from 1983. And yeah, this is just brilliant stuff here. Like it's Aztec Camera was basically just like one guy, so like Roddy Frame, like an absolutely fantastic like singer-songwriter. Like he was only about 18 like when like this record came out, and like it's just such a beautiful record, like such like well accomplished songwriting, like as well as like beautiful like arrangements, like and like guitar playing. Like this is like really good stuff here. And then for their second album, like they moved to a major label like this. This is a American copy on Sire for this record, Knife, produced by Mark Knopfler of Dire Straits. So yeah, like this is a brilliant record here. Like they would get a little bit more like mainstream like as like they went on, but certainly those two records are like absolutely fantastic from Aztec Camera.
Still relatively new to me. I mean, Ross was the one that got me interested in this band. In fact, you sent me that copy of the debut album, birthday gift, I think. So thanks for that. And I've got 3 of their albums now, and I like them a lot. So glad they made your list. Two more from me. Second to last, and again no order, but I've done a collections video on this over on my channel. Big, huge, influential band. People still give them a lot of credit for really changing the face of music and starting the post-rock movement, and that is the band Cocteau. And this was maybe my favorite album of theirs. I just recently picked this up, an original pressing of The Color of Spring. I've had a reissue of this with a bonus EP on it for a long, long time. But, you know, back in the day I had it on cassette. But absolutely beautiful album. I think, did we play this?
Yes,
we played it. And I think Ross is starting to kind of warm up to Cocteau a little bit. Not as big a fan as me, but from there they did this album, Spirit of Eden, which they really went to a different level of dark and simple. I don't know how to describe it. I'm terrible with descriptions sometimes, but you just have to hear it. I mean, they're really, really fantastic. And even though their catalog is not near as deep as most of the artists I'm showing here, I would say from my taste and my musical, not only exploration, but just the way it's formed through the years, Cocteau is very important. And I would consider them hugely influential.
And I always love their album artwork as well, like all the covers,
brilliant,
like, all very beautiful.
Even their 12-inch singles all have a nature theme to them, and there's a whole book I got to show you about that too.
I really like their sort of cover art.
Yeah,
and like, some of the songs are very good as well. So my next choice is this is my final one. No, it's not my final one actually. It is a little bit sort of like in like similar vein to Aztec Camera, another sort of like singer-songwriter sort of style guy. It's Lloyd Cole and the Commotions here. This is their first record from 1984, the Rattlesnakes album here. So yeah, like just like another really underrated like guy, that sort of thing. But I just like really like connect like with like his music, like great like lyrics and that. This is their first album. Now they only made like 3 records. Like then like Lloyd Cole like went on to do sort of solo stuff. This is their second one. Easy pieces. Both these records are both really fantastic. So yeah, really like Lloyd Cole and the Commotions.
Again, somewhat new to me. I've only really known about these albums for about a year, perhaps. But boy, were they so good. And
really good.
It's a shame in a way that they didn't do more than 3 albums, but he's had an amazing solo career.
Yeah, and like again, like it's sort of like hasn't really dated either. You know, it hasn't sort of got that sort of 80s sound to it. It's really very timeless. Yeah.
Well, last up for me, and I always try to be true to myself and stick to, the truth, I guess you could say. And this band is probably the most important. Well, I said that earlier. I can't say it again. I mean, they're all important, but I absolutely cherish them and love them so much. And I won't talk about it too much, but I have a whole two collections video on them. Cocteau Twins, such an important, huge band to me. This is Heaven or Las Vegas, and this is Bluebell Knoll. And I think this one actually does it have a year on it. Well, they don't. This would be the one to start with, I think. Maybe this is their most accessible commercial type sound on this particular album. And yeah, I would say maybe start here, because I think this is where I started, in fact. What can you say? Elizabeth Fraser's voice and the way she made up her own language to sing these songs for the most part. Robin Guthrie's guitar work and Simon Raymond on the bass. I mean, it's just brilliant. So yeah, again, these are in no particular order, but happy to save it for last, really.
Okay, but my last choice is probably for me the most sort of important band that I'll show today, and I'm going to be showing off James's box set, which I'm quite jealous of that he has here. Yeah, so this is quite a rare box set here, the Smiths complete here. So yeah, Smiths, absolutely fantastic stuff. Sort of then formed in, well, it's sort of like the first sort of releases were 1983, and they just sort of got better and better and better for the 5 years which they were together making music. So I think the ones which I'll show for me are probably this is a good sort of solid place to start. Hatful of Horror, sort of a collection of the early singles as well as sort of BBC sessions. And then probably also just sort of within sort of the time frame what we're talking about, The Queen Is Dead, probably the best album from 1986 here. Yeah, just fantastic stuff. Morris's singing, so unique sort of style of singing, and his lyrics, as well as Johnny Marr's brilliant guitar arrangements to the songs. Yeah, the Smiths, just one of the all-time greats.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was our 20 artists like we feel like have like defined like this like decades like of like music. So yeah, I really like enjoy like making like this video like with like you, James. I really like enjoy like seeing like your like picks and like also going through and also going through like your sort of like collection like wonderful like collection. You definitely like do like subscribe like to James's channel.
I think most of our lists are pretty interchangeable for the most part. I got a couple in here that I'm still working on Ross to get interested in, but I think it's safe to say we're always trying to influence each other, introduce each other to new things.
Yeah, new music. Although it's not necessarily new music.
Yeah.
It is
new old
sort of
music.
new. It's new for us. Yeah.
New when it was great. So anyway, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and I had a good time, and hope everyone enjoyed watching.
It's been like a pleasure like doing like this video like James with you. So yeah, so if you have enjoyed, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.
Bye bye.